Ahoy! I'm Thundercloud. Hey, how are you tonight? Welcome to Chillin Tuesday from the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame on the 30th of April. I'm Thundercloud. Yes, you know my mum calls me James. I'm washing away the garbage, leaving rainbows after rain. So let's have some fun and linguistic games here in the Seahorse Medicine Cafe, just off the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame in Guyra. Yes, what have I got for you tonight? Well, tonight I am planning to read to you the 1898 poetical works of Henry Lawson, beginning with Pigeon Toes. Now, he wrote quite a lot that year, so it's going to be a bit of a stretch to get through it, but I'm sure we are going to get through right to the end. Okay, let me have a sip of my tea here in my Australian Poetry Hall of Fame mug that you can get from the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame.com.au website. That's right, under shop. Check it out. That's it. The weather in Guyra, whether the weather will be good will depend on what the Bureau of Meteorology is telling us, I suppose, or what the weather turns out to be. It's going to be, I said it's 12.1. Tomorrow, though, it's only getting up to 14, which means it's going to be the coldest day this year in Guyra. Yes, it's true. But overnight, it's only going down to 8, so it's not going to be that cold. Over the next week, the minimums will be 8, 6, 6, 6, 6, and 7, and the maximums will be 14, 14, 15, 14, 13, and 14. So yeah, the daytime temperatures are getting colder, but the nighttime's still pretty warm. No sign of a frost yet, so you don't have to bring in your tomato plants or lock away your sheep in the barn or anything like that. There will be a few showers over the next weeks and all the weekends, so yeah, expect a bit of rain, and there might be a bit of fodder in the paddock for the farmers and for their stock as well. Yeah. Right, let's get on the road. Well, metaphorically speaking, because I'd be out there and you wouldn't be able, or you could probably hear me through my new lavalier mic that I need to stop whacking. Much better than you could hear me before. This is the new improved Chillin Tuesday with the spotlight lighting my face up and the lavalier mic and the new app on the phone, so stopping the flickering, hopefully. Let's begin with Pigeon Toes. A dusty clearing in the scrubs of barren western lands, where, out of sight or sign of hope, the wretched schoolhouse stands, a roof that glares at glaring days, a bare unwashed wall, a fence that guards no blade of green, a dust storm over all. The books are slates, and slates are packed away, the maps are rolled and tied, and for an hour I breathe and lay, my ghastly mask aside. I linger here to save my head from voices shrill and thin that rasp forever in the shed, the home I'm boarding in. The heat and dirt and wretchedness with which their lives began, bush mother nagging day and night, and sullen, brooding man, the minds that harp on single strings and never bright by chance, the rasping voice of paltry things, the hopeless ignorance. I had ideals when I came here, a noble purpose had, but all that they can understand is axe to grind or mad. I brood at times till comes a fear that sets my brain awhirl. I fight a strong man's battle here, and I am but a girl. I hated paltriness and deemed a breach of faith a crime. I listen now to scandal's voice in sewing lesson time. There is a thought that haunts me so and gathers strength each day. Shall I as narrow-minded grow, as mean of soul as they? the feuds that rise from paltry spite, or from no cause at all, the brooding, dark, suspicious minds, I suffer for it all. They do not dream the teacher knows what brutal thoughts are said. The children call me Pigeon Toes, Green Eyes, and Carrot Head. On phantom seas of endless change, my thoughts to madness roam. The only thing that keeps me here, the thoughts of those at home, the hearts that love and cling to me, that I love best on earth. My mother left in poverty, my brother blind from birth. On burning West Australian fields, in that great dreadful land, where all day long the heat waves flow, o'er the seas of glowing sand, my elder brother toils and breaks that great true heart of his to rescue us from poverty, to rescue me from this. And one is with him where he goes, my brother's mate and mine. He never called me Pigeon Toes. He said my eyes were fine. And his face comes before me now, and hope and courage rise. The lines of life, the troubled brow, firm mouth, and kind grey eyes. I preach content and gentleness, and mock example give. They little think the teacher hates and loathes the life they live. I told the infants fairy tales, but half an hour since, they little dream how Pigeon Toes prays for a fairy prince. I have one prayer, and God forgive a selfish prayer and wild. I kneel down by the infant's stool, for I am but a child, and pray as I've prayed times untold, that heaven will set a sign to guide my brother to the gold, for mother's sake and mine. A dust cloud on the lonely road, and I am here alone. I lock the door till it be past, for I have nervous grown. God spare me disappointment's blow. He stops beside the gate. A voice, thrill, feeling that I know. My brother, no, his mate. His eyes, a proud, triumphant smile, his arms outstretched, and come, for Jack and I have made our pile, and I'm here to take you home. That was first published in When I Was King, and that's Pigeon Toes by Henry Lawson. The next one is called Past Caring. Now up and down the siding brown, the great black crows are flying, and down below the spur I know another milker's dying. The crops have withered from the ground, the tank's clay bed is glaring, but from my heart no tear nor sound, for I have gone past caring, past worrying or caring, past feeling aught or caring, but from my heart no tear nor sound, for I have gone past caring. Through death and trouble turn about, through hopeless desolation, through flood and fever, fire and drought, through childbirth, sickness, hurt and blight, and nervousness and scaring, through being left alone at night. I've got to be past caring, past bothering or caring, past feeling and past caring, through city cheats and neighbours' spite. I've come to be past caring. Our first child took in days like these, a cruel week in dying. All day upon her father's knees, or on my poor breast lying. The tears we shed, the prayers we said, I've pulled thee through and buried too since then, and I'm past caring. I've grown to be past caring, past worrying and caring. I've pulled 3 through and buried 2 since then, and I'm past caring. 'Twas 10 years first, then came the worst, all for a dusty clearing. I thought my heart would burst when first my man went shearing. He's droven in the great northwest, I don't know how he's faring, for I, the one that loved him best, have grown to be past caring. I've grown to be past caring, past looking for or caring. This girl that waited long ago has lived to be past caring. My eyes are dry, I cannot cry. I've got no heart for breaking, but where it was in days gone by, a dull and empty aching. My last boy ran away from me. I know my temper's wearing, but now I only wish to be beyond all signs of caring. Past wearing or caring, past feeling and despairing, and now I only wish to be beyond all signs of caring. It's a very melancholy kind of poem, that one, isn't it? It's almost like suicidal. Gosh, that was published in the days when the world was wide. Now, the next one I've got for you, The Stranger's Friend. What have we got coming up here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame? Well, every Wednesday we've got Wednesday Words coming up. The Stranger's Friend. The strangest things and the maddest things that a man can do or say to the chaps and fellas and coves out back of matters of every day. Maybe on account of the lives they lead or the life that their hearts discard. But never a fool can be too mad or a hard case be too hard. I met him in Burke in the Union days, with which we have naught to do. Their creed was narrow, their methods crude, but they stuck to the cause like glue. He came into town from the Lost Soul Run for his grim half-yearly bend. And because of a curious hobby he had, he was known as the Stranger's Friend. It is true to the region of adjectives when I say that the spree was grim, for to go on the spree was a sacred right, or a heathen right to him, to shout for the travellers passing through to the land where the lost soul bakes, till they all seemed devils of different breeds, and his pockets were filled with snakes. In the joyful mood, in the solemn mood, in his cynical stages too, in the maudlin stage, in the fighting stage, in the stage when all was blue, from the joyful hour when his spree commenced right through to the awful end, he never lost his fixed idea that he was the stranger's friend. The fellow as knows he can battle around for his bloomin' self, he'd say. I don't give a curse for the blanks I know, send the hard up bloke this way. Send the stranger round and I'll see him through. And Ian, as the bushman spoke, The chaps and fellas would tip the wink to a casual hard-up bloke. And the chaps and fellas would speculate by way of a ghastly joke as to who'd be caught by the Jim Jams first, the friend or the hard-up bloke. And the joker would say that there wasn't a doubt as to who'd be damned in the end when the devil got hold of the hard-up bloke in the shape of the stranger's friend. It mattered not to the stranger's friend what the rest might say or think. He always held that the hard-up state was due to the curse of drink, to the evils of cards and of company. But a young cove's built that way. And I was a bloomin' fool myself when I started out, he'd say. At the end of the spree, in clean white moles, clean shaven and cool as ice, he'd give the stranger a bob or two and some straight outback advice. Then he'd tramp away for the Lost Soul Run, where the hot dust rose like smoke, having done his duty to all mankind, for he'd stuck to a hard-up bloke. They'll say 'tis a song of sot perhaps, but the song of a sot is true. I have battled myself, you know, you chaps, what a man in the bush goes through. Let us hope, when the last of his sprees is past and his checks and his strength are done, that amongst the sober and thrifty mates, the stranger's friend has won. The next one, how the land was won. If you're liking this, make sure you subscribe, click underneath, give it a thumbs up, click on there, do that now. Yes, thank you very much. And then click on the bell button for notifications. That's much appreciated. Thank you. Subscribe, like, notifications. And then you'll get notified about new videos as they come up from the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. And you can listen to the wonderful Australian poets and their poetry from me. Listen to me reading their poetry every Tuesday. And on Wednesday, we have Wednesday Words, which is an open mic poetry night. And anyone can come along. So come on down. How the Land Was Won by Henry Lawson. The future was dark and the past was dead as they gazed on the sea once more. But a nation was born when the immigrants said goodbye as they stepped ashore. In their loneliness they were parted thus because of the work to do, a wide, wide land to be won for us by hearts and hands so few. Darkest land neath the blue sky's dome and the widest waste on earth, the strangest scenes and the least like home in the lands of our fathers' birth. The loneliest land in the wide, wild world then, and away on the farthest seas, a land most barren of life for men, and they won it by twos and threes. With God or a dog to watch they slept by the campfire's ghastly glow, where the scrubs were dark as the blacks that crept with nullah and spear held low. Death was hidden amongst the trees and bare on the glaring sand. They fought and perished by twos and threes, and that's how they won the land. It was two that failed by the dry creek bed, while one reeled on alone. The dust of Australia's greatest dead, with the dust of the desert blown. Gaunt cheekbones cracking, the parchment skin that scorched in the blazing sun, black lips that broke in a ghastly grin, and that's how the land was won. Starvation and toil, on the tracks they went, and death by the lonely way, the childbirth under the tiltal tent, the childbirth under the dray, the childbirth out in the desolate hut, with a half-wild gin for nurse. That's how the first were born to bear the brunt of the first man's curse. They toiled and they fought through the shame of it, through wilderness, flood and drought. They worked in the struggles of early days, their son's salvation out. The white girl wife in the hut alone, the men on the boundless run, the miseries suffered, unvoiced, unknown, and that's how the land was won. No armchair rest for the old folk then, but ruined by blight and drought, they blazed the tracks in the camps again, in the big scrubs further out. The worn haft wet with a father's sweat, gripped hard by the eldest son, the boy's back formed to the hump of toil, and that's how the land was won. And beyond up country, beyond out back, and the rainless belt they ride, the currency lad and the ne'er-do-well and the black sheep side by side, the wheeling horizons of endless haze that disc through the great northwest, they ride forever by twos and by threes, and that's how they win the rest. Well, the next one I got for you here is the Ballad of the Rouseabout. Do you know what a rouseabout is? It's a person who helps out in the shearing shed. They sort of go and pick up the wool and they throw it in the baling thingy, whatever, and they sweep up and etc. They help out. A rouseabout of rouseabouts, from any land or none. I bear a nickname of the bush and I am a woman's son. I came from where I'd camped last night, and at the day dawn glow I rub the darkness from my eyes, roll up my swag and go. Some take the track for bitter pride, some for no pride at all. But to us all the world is wide when driven to the wall. Some take the track for gain in life, some take the track for loss. And some of us take up the swag as Christ took up the cross. Some take the track for faith in men, some take the track for doubt. Some flee a squalid home to work their own salvation out. Some dared not see a mother's tears nor meet a father's face. Born of good Christian families, some leap headlong from grace. Oh, we are men who fought and rose or fell from many grades, some born to lie and some to pray, we're men of many trades. We're men whose fathers were and are of high and low degree. The sea was open to us and we sailed across the sea. And were our quarrels wrong or just? Has no place in my song. We seared our souls in puzzling as to what was right or wrong. We judge not and we are not judged, 'tis our philosophy. There's something wrong with every ship that sails upon the sea. From shearing shed to shearing shed we tramp to make a check, from Jack Cornstalk and the ne'er-do-well, the tar boy and the wreck. We learn the worth of man to man, and this we learn too well. The shanty and the shearing shed are warmer spots in hell. I've humped my swag to Borley Plain and further out and on. I've boiled my billy by the Gulf and boiled it by the Swan. Thirsted in dry lignum swamps and thirsted in the sand, and eked the fire with camel dung in Neverland. I know the track from Spencer's Gulf and north of Cooper's Creek, where falls the half-caste to the strong black velvet to the weak, from Gold Top Flossie to the Strand to half-caste and the gin. If they had brains, poor animals, we'd teach them how to sin. I've tramped and camped and shore and drunk with many mates out back, and every one to me is Jack because the first was Jack. A life has sneaked from jail at home, the straightest mate I met, a rowdy Russian nihilist, a British baronet. I know the tucker tracks that feed or leave one in the lurch, the Burgo Presbyterian track, the Murphy Roman Church, but more the man and not the track so much as it appears, for battling is a trade to learn. I've served 7 years. We're haunted by the past at times, and this is very bad. and so we drink till hours come, lest sober we go mad. So much is lost out back, so much of hell is realised. A man might skin himself alive and no one be surprised. A rouseabout of rouseabouts, above, beneath regard. I know how soft is this old world, and I have learnt how hard. A rouseabout of rouseabouts, I know what men can feel. I've seen the tears from hard eyes slip as drops from polished steel. I learned what college had to teach in the school of men. By campfires I have learned, or say unlearned it all again. But this I've learned, the truth is strong, and if a man goes straight, he'll live to see his enemies struck down by time and fate. We hold him true who's true to one, however false he be. There's something wrong with every ship that lies beside the quay. We lend and borrow, laugh and joke, and when the past is drowned, we sit upon our swags and smoke and watch the world go round. And that was published first in Verses Popular and Humorous. It's the Ballad of the Rouseabout. This next one's called Jack Cornstalk, and the poetry in it are really part of a longer story, which I'm not going to be reading to you. Just the Jack Cornstalk poetry. Jack Cornstalk was a drover born. Jack Cornstalk, gaunt and tan. Jack Cornstalk leaves his love forlorn. Jack Cornstalk, man to man. Jack Cornstalk as a careless scamp with daydreams in his head. Jack Cornstalk on his lone wide camp. Jack Cornstalk with his dead. Jack Cornstalk at his worst and best. The day dawns in his brow. Jack Cornstalk's country must be first. Advance Australia now. Poem 1. Introduction, a glimpse of boyhood. Boys out there by western creeks who hurry away from school to climb the spurs of the breezy peaks or dive in the shaded pool. And then it goes on into the story, the short story. Jack Cornstalk in his teens. If not in the garden, he had in the ark to neither the beast nor passenger's joy for many a boyish, monkeyish lark, the sandy-complexioned and freckle-faced boy. And down through the ages he rattles the drums while armies and nations each other destroy. The century goes and the century comes, but he lives on forever, the freckled-faced boy. All over the world are the lands of his birth, and when time and transgression this planet destroy, he will come to advise the last man on earth, the fatherly chummy, the freckle-faced boy. Number 2, Jack Cornstalk is a lover, for he rides hard to dull the pain, who rides from one that loves him best, but he rides slowly home again, whose restless heart must rove for rest. Part 3. As a poet. Not from the seas does he draw inspiration, not from the rivers that croon in their bars, but a world-old desolation on a dead land alone with the stars. The long, hot day gone over and starlight came again, and I, a weary rover, lie camped on One Tree Plain. My saddle for a pillow, I lie beneath a tree that softens as to a willow in the moonlight over me. I dream that I remember a distant, distant day beyond yon misty timber in the home world far away. Man to man. The stranger's hand to the stranger yet, for a roving's life is mine. The stranger's store for the stranger's set, and the campfire glow and sign. And the next one, he buries his dead. For 30 miles round Talbragar, the boys rolled up in a strength, and Denver had a funeral, a good long mile in length. Second class, wait here is the next one. On a suburban railway stations, you may see them as you pass. There are signboards on the platform saying, "Wait here, second class." And to me, the whir and thunder of the cluck of running gear seems to be forever saying, "Second class, wait here. Wait here, second class, wait here." Seems to be forever saying, "Second class, wait here." And the second class were waiting in the days of Surf and Prince, and the second class are waiting. They've been waiting ever since. There are gardens in the background, and the line is bare and drear. Yet they wait beneath a signboard, sneering, "Second class, wait here." I have waited oft in winter in the mornings dark and damp, when the asphalt platform glistened underneath the lonely lamp. Ghastly on the brick-faced cuttings, Selim's soap and blower's beer. Ghastly on enamelled signboards with their second class wait here. And the others seem like burglars, slouched and muffled on the throats, standing round apart and silent in their shoddy overcoats, and the wind among the wires and the poplars bleak and bare seem to be forever snarling, "Second class, wait here." Out beyond the furthest suburb, neath a chimney snack alone, lay the works of grinders' brothers with a platform of their own. And I waited there and waited there for many a year, slave beneath a phantom signboard, telling our class to wait here. Ah, a man must feel revengeful for a boyhood such as mine. God, I hate the very houses near the workshop by the line, and the smell of railway stations, and the roar of running gear, and the scornful seeming sideboards saying, "Second class, wait here." There's a train with dearth for driver, which is ever going past, and there are no class compartments, and we all must go at last to the long white jasper platform with an Eden in the rear, and there won't be any signboards saying, "Second class, wait here." Old Jimmy Woodser. The old Jimmy Woodser comes into the bar unwelcomed, unnoticed, unknown. Too old and too odd to be drunk with by far, and he glides to the end where the lunch baskets are, and they say that he tipples alone. His frock coat is green and the nap is no more, and the style of his hat is at rest. He wears the peaked collar our grandfathers wore, the black ribbon tie that was legal of yore, and the coat buttoned over his breast. When first he came in, for a moment I thought that my vision or wits were astray, for a picture and page out of Dickens he brought. 'Twas an old file dropped in from the Chancery Court to a wine vault just over the way. And I opened the door as the old man passed out with his short shuffling step and bowed head, and I sighed, for I felt as I turned me about an odd sense of respect, born of whisky, no doubt, for the life that was 50 years dead. And I thought there are times when our memory trends through the future as 'twere on its own. Then I, out of date, and my pilgrimage ends in a new-fashioned bar to dead loaves and dead friends, might drink like the old man alone while they whisper he boozes alone. From the Strand to the Never. Last glass of the last of our revels, last song to be sung without ruse. Let us give what is due to our devils, ere the kitchens come down on our youth. In the old lands where vagabonds ever, in the new such as we bear the brunt, and the path from the Strand to the Never, why ashamed of it? Let's up the front. Then here's to the cross-bearer silent, to the lips that are grim to the end, and to the pledger that was broken for a friendship, and the life that was sworn for a friend, to the lie, for the lie that was noble, to the heart that would perjure the soul for the sake of a woman in trouble, for the sake of a mate in a hole. We drifted and saw not the dangers of wearing the heart on the sleeve. We saw the fresh kindness of strangers and deemed it was best to believe. If we'd borrowed and passed when we needed, if we loved for a while and we're gone, in the end 'twill be surely conceded that we gave all we had and passed on. On the stage set for good and for evil, on the youth play we're leaving behind, were the prompter man, devil or angel, for the most part the promptings were kind. And whatever the future before us and whatever heartburn it brings, here's a glass to the spirit that bore us, and the rag is waved down from the wings. And that was first published in the Bulletin, From the Strand to the Never. Our Fighters, and it's actually about the Transvaal War. And okay, and then there's a reading about it, and then it goes into the poem, Our Fighters, from a worldly point of view. That's called. But since our boys are going, though the cause seem cronk to me, I'll say it's in accordance with the things that have to be, and trust they'll manage with the best the work they're set to do for the honour of old New South Wales from a worldly point of view. For up the country and out back, from the Darling to the Quay, and let some old familiars sound your cheering war cry be. Sing Sydney, Clontarf, Manly, Beach, Bondi and Coogee too, for the honour of old New South Wales from a worldly point of view. When your lungs are choked up in your throat and your heart beats in your head, and in the smoke before your eyes there's blinding mist blood red, where sinews draw like red-hot wire and knocked out men are you, there's honour in the old New South Wales from a worldly point of view. Then draw the moisture from your cheeks to damp your cracking clay, and let some old familiar name your death yell be that day. Cry, for Bob Robbo, wool away, cry Burke and Woollamaloo, for the glory of old New South Wales from a worldly point of view. If you get yourselves into a mess, cut off in broken ground, in a red-hot gully where the foe are firing down all around, where the burring bullets smash your heads and the shells cuts mates in two, where there's the honour of old New South Wales from a worldly point of view. Yell, blank and gory, lurid, dash and through the dust, cooee, and let the great Australian oath in all your barrack be. Yell star and noose and bully teen and times and herald too, for the glory of old New South Wales from a worldly point of view. Then climb and crawl as long as nail hangs on to toe or claw, and fire and strike and shoot as long as muscles draw, for the girls you took to Manly Beach, who'll wait on the quay for you, for the honour of old New South Wales from the people's point of view. That was first published in the Australian Star. Now, I will read the introduction, some of the introduction to that. Our Fighters from a worldly point of view. Now that our boys are going to the Transvaal War, we, that is I, will suppose that it's all in accordance with the things that have to be, and hope for the best from the world's point of view. Therefore, and the question of right or wrong can do no good in this article. Therefore, I trust that our chaps will do the work that is put into their hands, to do and kill the foe that comes within their range to kill, and take as many prisoners as they can lay their hands on for the worldly honour of New South Wales, and keep as much as possible from being killed or taken prisoners themselves. For this, for the comfort of the said colony. There you go. This is really Henry Lawson deriding colonisation and the British war machine back in 1898. 1899, actually. And 1898, yeah. So, and it goes on. And so now, you chaps that are going, when you're marching and fighting and your lungs begin to choke up in your throats and there's a ringing and a buzzing in your ears because your hearts are beating in your heads, when you're choking with thirst and dust and stung between the shoulder blades and your aching joints give and you feel ready and willing to drop and let the rest of the army tramp on over you, then will be the time for you to hold up the honour of New South Wales from a worldly point of view. For the girls you took to Manly Beach who'll wait for you on Circular K, think of that day. And you will have to win over again and side by side with them all the cricket matches you ever won from the Britishers. Think of that. And let Bill Martin be one of your war cries. If you come across any, and I'm going to use this because I'm not going to censor Henry Lawson's work, any niggers, learn to sleep calmly, notwithstanding a fact that a big greasy buck nigger, a perfect stranger to you, is more likely to crawl in without knocking through a slit in the tent any minute during the small hours, rip out your innards with a nasty knife and leave without explaining. Also, pick up all the points you can about army swag carrying and getting from one place to another quick, and the gentle art of bursting an enemy at long range as well as at close quarters. For someday foreign foes might take it into their heads to drop a few shells in likely places in Australia, say into a Parliament House or a tote shop or a land-armed pushers in spots where you take your girls picnicking. Then we'll need to know all we can about the game. And if you get into a tight place, say cut off in a red-hot gully with the Boers firing down on you from stone fences on the edges of heights, with sides like cliffs all round, and your only chance short of showing a white rag will be to climb and get on level or higher terms with them, then will be your show. When, say, there's 50 or 100 of your chums lying round in the hot dust among the glaring boulders like the remains of a gang of navvies that have been cut up by a goods train in a tunnel and tipped carelessly out on the road over a steep place and no water. When a few shells have been made a mess and left objects that look as if it's fresh offal from a slaughterhouse on top has been stuffed into dusty uniforms to make dummies which have been thrown over and have burst. Nothing but dust and heat and smoke and dust and blood and caked objects, fragments of humanity and one or two of the less damaged dragging, smashing lower limbs like chopped meat in trouser legs and howling for a drink and someone to finish him. For God's sake, then will be your chance. Crawl and climb while you can see for the hot blood mist in your eye, and afterward, while a fingernail or toe hangs on, yell to cheer yourself and others the old familiar names you know. Let them be your war cries. Yell, Sydney Side, Clontarf, Manly Beach. not forgetting Coogee, Bondi, Chowder. Yell the Rocks, Argyle Cut, and Woolloomooloo. Fire and strike while a muscle answers and yell for Bob Robbo and the Star and the Bulletin, not forgetting the Noose and the Herald and the Times and the Hara. Yell John Norton Crick and Truth and the Trivoli. Swear at each other and do your blankiest because of the way the world looks at things and for the glory of old New South Wales. But clearly, I might express my ideas, if they are ideas and not nightmares, a little more clearly in rhyme. Past the old bush-honoured concertina and let us swank, leaving out the first verse if you like, which we won't do. And I'll repeat the song again. Our fighters, from a worldly point of view. But since our boys are going, though the cause seem cronk to me, I'll say it's in accordance with the things that have to be. And trust they'll manage with the best the work they're set to do for the honour of old New South Wales, from a worldly point of view. For up the country and out back, from the Darling to the Quay, and let some old familiar sound your cheering war cry be. Sing Sydney, Clontarf, Manly Beach, Bondi, Coogee too, for the honour of old New South Wales, from a worldly point of view. When your lungs are choked up in your throat and your heart beats in your head and in the smoke before your eyes there's a blinding mist, blood red, where sinews draw like red hot wire and knocked out men are you. There's the honour of old New South Wales from a worldly point of view. Then draw the moisture from your cheeks to damp your cracking clay and let some old familiar name your death yell be that day. Cry for Bob Robbo, wool away, cry Burke and Woolloomooloo, for the glory of old New South Wales from a worldly point of view. Then, if you get yourselves into a mess, cut off in broken ground, in a red-hot gully where the foe are firing down all round, where the burring bullets smash your heads and the shells cut mates in too, there's the honour of old New South Wales from a worldly point of view. Yell blank and gory, lurid dashing through the dust, coo-ee! And let the great Australian oath in all your barrack be. Yell Star and Noose and Bulletin, Times and Herald too, for the glory of old New South Wales from a worldly point of view. Then climb and crawl as long as nail hangs on toe or claw, and fire and strike and shoot as long as muscles draw. For the girls you took to Manly Beach who'll wait at the quay for you, for the honour of old New South Wales from the people's point of view. So the next one I've got here is called The Blessings of War. I'm in favour of the war and of a half a dozen more, and I think that we should have had one long before. There's nothing to deplore. I'm in favour of the war, independent of all statements made by Britain or by Boer. 'Tis a healthy stirring of the dregs of sorrow's cup. 'Tis a joyful thing as I have always held, for it brings us something new, and I am looking forward to the festive time when Sydney shall be shelled. Oh, the bush is dull and brown, and it's dullest still in town, and the bush bard and his reader crave for change. For they're sick of Bill and Jim and the dusty track and grim, and they're tired of chasing brumbies on the range. We need ne'er in rhyme again carry swag across the plain. We need never fight the plura, drought and flood, for Jack Cornstalk gone to war, as Bill Shakespeare said before, shall be copy now to men of grosser blood. shall be copy now at home, both in story, sketch and poem. In the new Australian drama he'll be great. Both in letters and in art he will play the paying part, and 'tis farewell to the swagman and his mate. When he's sick of grubbing stumps of the posts and rail he humps, we won't send him off out back with a swag or with a pack, but we'll send him to Africa in style. And he'll come back in the drought, and he'll farm the man old out, and he'll take his mother home to live with him. And a billet or a grant will be all on earth he'll want, and he'll wed the squatter's daughter fair and slim. When his life is hard and grim, and his best girl's false to him, and he's sick and tired and mad about it all, we will ship him with 3 cheers to the Dingo Volunteers, and his manly breast expanding for the ball. But he'll come back with the rest, and his VC on his breast. Oh, we'll bring him back in glory and in rhyme. And the girl, her blue eyes dim, who has pined and longed for him, she will tell him that she loved him all the time. The Bulletin, that was first published in, and it's called The Blessings of War. The babies in the bush. They trotted away from the homestead fair ere the leaves in the noontide drooped. They trotted along by the stockyard bare, and under the rails they stooped. Each chubby brown hand, lest a bad wind blowed, held fast to a sailor hat. They had begged to go where the daisies growed and the buttercups out on the flat. Oh, sing me a song of a fairy bright, of a spirit the bellbirds know, that guides the feet of the lost aright, or carries them through the starry night where the bush lost babies go. We wander away as our fortune needs, when our feet are strong to roam, but what is the spirit that always leads the toddler's feet from home? A belt of timber and miles beyond, the awful scrubs aglow. Oh, plead in prayer that it is not there that the bush lost babies go. We thought of the tales that the bush can tell as the awful suns went round, and we'll find those babies asleep and well as bush lost babies are found. We searched all night and we searched all day, we searched through the broiling week, but never a sign of a baby's foot was found by that lonely creek. The mother waits 'neath the noontide glare and under the midnight skies, till the wild fixed look of a life's despair comes into her hopeless eyes. But the strong man kneels by her side and turns her face from the clearing bare to the stars above with a husband's love and our bush lost babies there. And she sings in the heart of a fairy bride, of a spirit the bellbirds know, to guide the feet of the lost aright and lead them to a land of light where the bush lost babies go. A little sad one about how little babies used to get lost in the bush in the early days. They'd wander off, they'd disappear, get eaten by a snake or dingo or taken, whatever, who knows, eaten, maybe just died and lost. The next one I've got for you here, and I've pretty much only got 2 more for 1899, is called The Green Tide. The loud brave laugh and the well-worn jest, or will fail at the pinch to smile. You'll be dull today if you know your best, and I'll feel a sore heart a while. A grip over rail with your hand in mine for the future and what has been. And the wharf and the deck roaring auld lang syne, and the green tide slips between. As the green tide slips between, old man, and the green tide flows between, you'll drop me a line and I'll drop you a line when the South Sea rolls between. But you'll be afloat on a New Year's boat, for I seek a good luck for 2. And you'll start a cheer when you sight the pier, and I'll raise one there for you. A grip over rail with your hands in mine for the future and what has been. And the wharf and the deck roaring auld lang syne when the green tide spreads between. And the green tide runs between, old man, and the green tide flows between. I'll drop you a line and you drop me a line when the South Sea rolls between. And that was first published in the Town and Country Journal, The Green Tide by Henry Lawson. All right. Now, if you're liking my reading of Henry Lawson's poetry, you can support the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame as a patron. Underneath is a PayPal link that where you can just go to and you can donate money to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. So I can get better lighting, get a better sound to stop the flickering, and I can continue to do these kinds of videos and to celebrate our wonderful Australian poets, because without your support, well, then it's just not possible to keep going, really. Okay. So you can also send like Bitcoins, you can send XRP, Ripple, a whole lot of different cryptocurrencies to our wallet addresses below. So please feel free to donate. It would be much appreciated. And the other thing is, we've got out there the Australian Poetry Library and Archive. And it's a collection of over 2,500 Australian and international poetry books. And it's growing all the time with generous donations from people like you out there who send us books here to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame and the Australian Poetry Library at 144 Bradley Street, Guyra. And they're always very appreciated. So if you're a poet or a collector of poetry and you'd like your works preserved here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame in the Australian Poetry Library, send us your books, please. Thank you. Now, the other thing I'm doing at the moment, we're running the Australian Poetry Film Contest. And there are three categories of that. There is Best Australian Poetry Film, Best Australian Bush Poetry Film, and Best Student Bush Poetry Film. And you can check that out on www.filmfreeway.com/Australian Poetry Film Contest. And the link is in the description below. I'm also raising funds for the prize money for the poets and the filmmakers who enter that. And there is also a GoFundMe link down below or over there in the description. Now, let's get on with The Rovers by Henry Lawson. These are like, the Rovers were pretty much the swagmen of the time. Some born of homely parents for ages settled down, the steady generations of village, farm and town, and some of dusky fathers who wandered since the flood, the fairest skin or darkest might hold the roving blood. Some born of brutish peasants, and some of dainty peers, in poverty or plenty they passed their early years, but born in pride of purple or straw and squalid sin, in all the far world corners the wanderers are kin. A rover or a rebel, conceived and born to roam, as babies they will toddle, with faces turned from home. They've fought beyond the vanguard, and wherever storm has raged, and home is but a prison, they pace like lions caged. They smile and are not happy, they sing and are not gay. They weary, yet they wander, they love and cannot stay. They marry and are single who watch the roving star, for by the family fireside, oh, lonely men they are. They die in peace and quiet, the deadly ease of life. They die of home and comfort. They live in storm and strife. No poverty can tie them, nor wealth, nor place restrain. Girl, wife, or child might draw them, but they'll be gone again. Across the glowing desert, through naked trees and snow, across the rolling prairies, the skies have seen them go. They fought to where the ocean receives the setting sun, but where shall fight the rovers when all the lands are won? Unlisted, uncommissioned, untaughted for any school, in faraway world corners, unconquered tribes they rule. The lone hand and revolver, sad eyes that never quail, the lone hand and the rifle that win where armies fail. They slumber sound where murder and treachery are bare, the pluck of self-reliance, the pluck of past despair, thin brown men in pyjamas, the thin brown wiry men, the helmet and revolver that lie beside the pen. Through drought and desolation, they won the way out back. The commonplace and selfish have followed on their track. They conquer lands for others find the gold. But where shall go the rovers when all the lands are old? A rover and a rebel, and so the worlds commence. Their hearts shall beat as wildly 10 generations hence. And when the world is crowded, 'tis signed and sealed by fate. The roving blood will rise to make the countries desolate. And that was first published in Verses, Popular and Humorous, The Rovers by Henry Lawson. Well, that's it for Henry Lawson's 1899 poetry, which I've finished reading to you now. So from old Jimmy Woodser, all the way back here to, right in the beginning, the Ballad of the whatever I did tonight. Hey, look, it's been wonderful reading my Henry Lawson to you. It looks like we'll be heading for rain tomorrow here in Gaia and over the next few days. As I said, it's going to be down around 14 and 6 and 7 degrees overnight. So, yeah, a bit damp and clammy, but just the sort of weather that Thundercloud loves. Hey, before I go, I'm going to get a couple of things other than Henry Lawson to read you. Now, one of Henry Lawson's contemporaries and peers was Dame Mary Gilmore, who is on the $10 note with Banjo Patterson. Now, Dame Mary Gilmore was born the year after Banjo Patterson and the year before, 2 years before Henry Lawson. But she lived a really long life. I think she lived until 1961. Yes, she did. And Henry Lawson died in 1922 and Banjo Patterson, I think it was in 40, something like that. 44, I'm not too sure. But she certainly was a contemporary. But because of when she died, a lot of her poetry is still under copyright. So I can't quite read it all to you yet, but I can read some of it. Now, I've got a first edition here of Mary Gilmore's book, Battlefields. And this book was published in 1939. So you're jumping forward another, almost 40 years from that last Henry Lawson stuff, even though she was his contemporary. And by this time, Henry Lawson had certainly passed on because he died in 1922. So Dame Mary Gilmore, and we'll just start with the Ringer, which is the very first one in here, in Battlefields. And then it's in brackets, El Campeador. Never allow the thoughtless to declare that we have no tradition here. They have not heard the strong tread of the feet that, as the first footers crossed our inland plains, vast as Sahara and silent as Siberia, nor have they seen the solitary wing that climbed the very heavens for purchase o'er that nether world that is the sea, nor have they watched as though a star, the fitful beam of some small fire, shooting the dark and by remoteness marking where some ringer of the land made his camp. Tradition lies with deeds, not time, one man, one deed, 1 hour, as he of Marathon, or as Leonidas, or as Gallipoli and Villas Brett, or as Gallipoli and Villas Brett. 1,000 years are thistledown to these, 1,000 years can nothing add to them. For Marathon was once as new as Suvla Bay, Leonidas as young as our Monash. But what tradition these in their newness made? So once more be it said, tradition lies in deeds, not time. Australia's wells are deep and full, but every shallow thinker looks afar and says, there is no water here. The windlasses are new, and yet tradition ranges through our land, for here the ringer strode in 7-leagued boots, or shears, or pride, or courage, moving eager on, till he outswam the seas, outclimbed the mountain tops, made servant of the air, and dared, and daring outpaced time. I sought the ringer as a clansman seeks his chief, and missing him, I turned to where the great sea cows, full laden, bellowed through the morning fogs towards their milking yards, thinking to find him there, wharf, pier, and quay. Gave up their hosts in tumbling stream to where, in waiting fleets, the trams and trains filled up, and like great buckets bore the freight to its appointed place, the milk of earth that flows as humankind, and in its little dishes set, yields up its cream to give the world romance, and recreate creation to its will. The ringer was not there, and then one said, the last I saw of him was on the Thomson, booked for shearing at Barcaldine Downs. But hearing it, another said, that wasn't him. For when I came to Midgeon Lake, they told me I just missed him. He'd gone the day before, and still another. Don't make no mistake, the ringer's out at Ivanhoe, I heard at Desley's camp as I came through. Oh, was it Ivanhoe, Barcaldine Downs, or Hungerford? Was it east or west? Or was it somewhere up upon Cape York, the Jardines? Or was it where upon Cape York the Jardines set their mark and Somerset still holds their name? Or was it where Hey Helen Booligal in the Dark Order ran as farthest out? And worst, no matter where, the ringer's cry is heard, that in whatever our men stand, the vision held calls the outventuring from the quiet hearth, calls to the spirit that inheres in force to break for liberty, for right to set power free and conquer worlds, for in it each one hears the leader's voice, the fledging thrust on embryo wings for flight, the shout of life to prove combatively its will to live, and in it ever cries the need of man as man, to leave the cloaked hour and the street, and know himself as God, master time and space. No scholar gypsy this, not even Lob, but one who flamed with lightning speed from need to need endlessly on through our Australian history, to grow at last so tall, men leaning on a fence will speak of him as churchmen speak of kings, or as forgotten stable lads among the straw talked once of carbine and barb. Oh, many names the ringer had. You'll find him in McKinley's Pound, Owanagin, the native name in old South Australia, in Sturt's Lookout, Lake Eyre and Leichhardt's Tree. Then there's Fort Burke, from which they dropped the fort, I don't know why, the Flinders, Tennant's Creek, Wave Hill, the Kimberleys, and even poor lost Lassiter's last ride. Again, you'll find him known as Horden, Kennedy, or Hume, sometimes as Gilbert or Ben Hall, but mostly in the sheds he wrote his name, Jack Howe. Later we find him as that parer who, with Macintosh, crossed seas on wire-held mats for wings. And then we heard of him as Kingsford Smith, the man who rode the air as other men would ride a horse. And sometimes, too, I think he must have been the one they call Jack Hydes. Hawker, of course, he was, and gallant young Ross Smith. And for years as Peter Layla he was known. And once they called him William Lane, and once John Dunmore Lang, whose very name was thunder in a narrow sky. And once they called him William Morris Hughes. Still, in the well the water lies, although none draw it forth. The well of a well, because of it, here is my parable. Let each man read it as he may. So yeah, that is The Ringer by Mary Gilmore. All right, well, that's it for Chillin' Tuesday. Stay tuned tomorrow night for Wednesday Words from the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. So if you are an artist, a poet, a writer, a musician, a comedian, a stand-up person, anyone who wants to say something, you are quite welcome to come here. We open the doors, I open the doors from 5:30 here in the Seahorse Medicine Cafe for dinner. And then from 6:30, 6:45-ish, we start the recording and we have our open mic night. So Wednesday Words, here from the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. I'm Thundercloud, washing away the garbage, leaving rainbows after rains. We've had fun. We've had linguistic games. Yes, you know, my mum calls me James. I will catch you tomorrow night and next week with more Chillin' Tuesday in May.